Have you ever wondered if dragons, those mythical creatures of fire and fury, make an appearance in the Bible? Many of us are enthralled by the tales of dragons, these majestic and fearsome beasts that have captivated the human imagination for centuries. From ancient folklore to modern fantasy literature, dragons have always held a prominent place in our collective consciousness. But did you know that dragons are mentioned several times in the Bible? Yes, you heard it right. The Bible, that ancient text which has shaped cultures and societies, has references to these mythical creatures. It seems that our fascination with dragons isn't just a product of modern fantasy or ancient mythology. It's rooted in some of the oldest texts known to humankind. So what do these biblical references to dragons mean? How does the Bible portray these mythical beasts? Let's dive into the scriptures to uncover the truth about dragons in the Bible. The first mention of dragons in the Bible comes from the Old Testament in the Book of Deuteronomy. In Deuteronomy 32:33, we find an intriguing verse that states, "Their wine is the venom of serpents, the deadly poison of dragons." This reference to dragons is not a literal one, but rather a metaphorical device used to depict the vile and harmful nature of sin. Dragons, throughout the Old Testament, are often depicted as embodiments of chaos and evil. They represent formidable adversaries, threats to the order and goodness of creation. In the ancient Near Eastern cultures, dragons were seen as symbols of chaos, opposing the divine order. The Bible adopts this imagery, using dragons to symbolize destructive forces against which God and his people must contend. In this context, the dragon in Deuteronomy serves as a powerful metaphor for the destructive potential of sin, illustrating its deadly and chaotic nature. The dragon here is a symbol of evil, a stark contrast to the benevolent image of the dragon in some cultures. Moving forward in the biblical timeline, dragons make several appearances in the Psalms and in the books of the prophets. Let's dive into the depths of the Book of Psalms, specifically Psalm 74, verse 13. Here we encounter a fascinating verse. "You divided the sea by your might. You broke the heads of the dragons in the waters." This verse is a poetic recounting of God's power and might as he conquered the sea and the dragons within it. But what does this dragon symbolize? In the context of the psalm, the dragon represents chaos and disorder, the turmoil of the sea. When God breaks the heads of the dragons, he is, in essence, bringing order to chaos, establishing his dominion over all elements of creation. Now, let's turn the pages to the book of Isaiah, chapter 27, verse 1. Here the dragon reappears. "In that day, the Lord with his hard and great and strong sword will punish Leviathan the fleeing serpent, Leviathan the twisting serpent, and he will slay the dragon that is in the sea." This verse directly references the dragon as Leviathan, a mythical sea creature known for its power and ferocity. However, even this mighty beast is described as being under God's control. God, with his hard, great, and strong sword, will conquer Leviathan, illustrating once more his absolute power and authority. In both these instances, the dragon serves as a metaphorical representation of powerful entities, forces, or challenges that appear insurmountable. Yet they are ultimately under God's control. They highlight the biblical theme of God's sovereignty over all his creation, even the most formidable and chaotic elements. Through these verses, we see that dragons symbolize entities that are powerful, yet ultimately under God's control. But perhaps the most famous dragon in the Bible is the one from the book of Revelation. This dragon is vividly described in two passages, Revelation 12, verses 3 and 4, and 12, verses 7 to 9. The first passage introduces us to an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, with 7 crowns upon his heads. His tail sweeps a third of the stars out of the sky and flings them to the earth. Quite the dramatic entrance, wouldn't you say? Moving to the second passage, there's a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fight against the dragon. The dragon and his angels, however, couldn't stand their ground. They lost their place in heaven and were hurled down to the earth. The dragon is then identified as the ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. The interpretation of this dragon as Satan has been widely accepted. After all, the text makes it clear that this dragon, the ancient serpent, is the devil or Satan. But why a dragon? Why not another creature? The dragon, in many cultures, is seen as a symbol of power, strength, and chaos. It's a fitting symbol for Satan, who seeks to disrupt God's order and lead people away from God. Moreover, the dragon's actions in these passages tie into the overall theme of Revelation. Satan, the dragon, is actively working against God's kingdom. He's trying to disrupt God's plan. But no matter how much chaos he causes, he won't succeed. God, in his power and majesty, will ultimately defeat him. This is the message of Revelation. Despite all the struggles, trials, and spiritual warfare, God's victory is assured. Satan, the dragon, will be defeated. It's a message of hope for believers, a promise that God is in control no matter how chaotic things may seem. So the dragon in Revelation represents Satan, the ultimate adversary whom God ultimately defeats. So, what can we conclude about dragons in the Bible? Dragons, as we've explored, are not merely mythical creatures of old folklore. They hold a special place in biblical scripture, serving as powerful symbols rather than literal beasts. These formidable entities represent chaos, evil, and immense power. But it's important to remember that they are consistently depicted as conquered by God, an illustration of his omnipotence. From the ancient verses of Deuteronomy to the poetic Psalms and the prophetic books, dragons emerge as symbolic adversaries. They peak in the apocalyptic literature of Revelation, standing as the ultimate embodiment of evil. Yet even there they are defeated. This exploration of dragons in the Bible reveals not just their symbolic significance, but also a recurring theme of God's sovereignty. No matter how fearsome, how chaotic, or how powerful these entities may appear, they are ultimately subject to God's authority. Whether real or mythical, dragons in the Bible serve a purpose to illustrate the ultimate power of God over all entities, no matter how fearsome they may seem.